Hey
Hey
everybody,
everybody.
welcome back to the Night Owls podcast. On this episode this week, we're doing Skinwalkers because it's my birthday week and I get to choose what we do. So let's get right into it.
Yeah,
Alex, do you want to take the first paragraph?
yeah, sure. I don't know about you two, but I'm really excited for this. I've been ready to talk about Skinwalkers for quite a while.
Cool.
All right,
I like Skinwalkers. I think they're kind of interesting. They
mm-hmm.
scare the shit out of me,
Right,
but I still love them.
right,
I think that's the point. I think it's the fact that they scare the shit out of me that I like them so much.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like, cause we kind of live in the country, you know?
mm-hmm.
And like a lot of the things you like hear, they like the country kind of
Yep.
area. And you know,
Easy
you
pickings out here.
yeah. One thing you told me a long time ago, if you even like think or talk about a skinwalker too long, it draws their attention to you.
Yep.
And it's like we're about to talk to him for a straight hour plus. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so we know what's about to happen to us
Yeah.
later.
We stay out late, you know.
Yeah,
We're the night owls, clearly.
and night owls are prime targets for creatures of the night.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into Skinwalkers. You ready?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
All right. In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is not used for their healers, though.
Animals associated with witchcraft usually include tricksters, such as the coyote, but can include other creatures, usually those associated with death or bad omens. They might also possess living animals or people and walk around their bodies by locking eyes with them. Skinwalkers may be male or female, but are typically male.
Skinwalker stories told among Navajo children may be complete life and death struggles that end in either Skinwalker or Navajo killing the other, or partial encounter stories that end in a stalemate. Encounter stories may be composed as Navajo victory stories, with the Skinwalkers approaching a Hogan and being scared away.
Non-native interpretations of skinwalker stories typically take the form of partial encounter stories on the road, where the protagonist is temporarily vulnerable, but then escapes from the skinwalker in a way not traditionally seen in Navajo stories that take place away from home. Sometimes Navajo children take Euro-derived folk stories and substitute generic killers like the Hook with skinwalkers.
They are stories of shape-shifting creatures across Navajo Nation, the 24,000 plus reservation land encompassing most of northeastern Arizona and the adjacent corner sections of New Mexico and Utah. A taboo subject amongst natives, skinwalkers are seldom discussed with members outside the tribe and rarely even inside it. The Navajo skinwalker legend is not unlike that of the European werewolf. A once ordinary human discovers the ability to shift into animal form at night, where his doings then become almost exclusively evil. Unlike the werewolf, however, the skinwalker curse is desired and acquired. That is, skinwalkers do not have the bad luck to be bitten and forced into the curse. Rather, they want it and are willing to perform extraordinary rites of evil in order to achieve it.
There are multiple legends behind the origin of the Navajo Skinwalker. One claims Navajos mastered shape-shifting in order to escape persecution and relocation. The Kit Carson-led cornering of the tribe deep in Canyon de Chelly, I believe, and later their forced and disastrous relocation to Bosque de Redondo. Another version relates to the Navajo belief in the Anasazi curse, that the Anasazi were responsible for the prevailing witchcraft in the Navajo tribes. And the Navajo skinwalkers use the off-limit Anasazi ruins and grave sites to gain certain powers.
The most prominent history of the skinwalker tells of a particular form of Navajo witch, or we got some Navajo language here.
Yeah, we're not
It's
saying it like
pretty
that.
difficult.
Ini.
Okay.
The Ont-Ini, translated to mean, with it he goes on all fours.
Ooh, that creeps me out.
Skinwalkers are usually a medicine man or high-ranking priest who has obtained supernatural powers through breaking a cultural taboo, including murder, seduction, or the corruption or the corrupting of a family member.
Mm.
Upon accepting this deep and consuming level of witchcraft, skinwalkers are banished forever from a tribe. But considering the foreknowledge of this,
Oh, I'm sorry.
as well the despicable facts required for the transformation, the aspiring skinwalker surely possessed an early preceded hate for that tribe. Prowling alone in the desert, a skinwalker, and also, unlike the werewolf, has the ability to shapeshift into any animal they wish. Although most commonly the animal is a coyote, wolf, cougar, fox, owl, or crow. A reason why pelts of these animals are widely restricted amongst the Navajo.
Something that really creeped me out about that sentence was the fact that they said owls.
Right.
And it's like, where are the night owls? So
Right.
like, it's kind of creepy.
We might be spared
Right.
their fury.
See,
Oh,
we
that
can
creeps
find
me
several
out.
cases in the superstition of the early Americans where they would believe that the witches would be able to turn themselves into animals and
Right.
follow this skinwalker trait.
Right.
And again, it followed amongst all the medicine people, the women that could heal people with medicinal herbs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They were often accused of being a witch, or as they say here, a skinwalker.
Right.
And there's several really unique stories about that.
Mm.
And they use these powers to do bad. You know,
Mhm.
they're not a medicine man that does good. They're called a witch because they're doing bad to
Mhm.
people, not good for them.
Even though
Yeah.
originally they did start as medicine people, they chose to go the dark
Right.
path.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them probably got into it very innocently,
Kind of
but
like,
then made the choice to transfer from light to dark.
how some people use magic for good and other people use magic for bad, like black magic and that kind
Mhm.
of thing.
Yep.
They use their traits to do bad things, or not traits, but I guess
Their abilities.
their abilities to do bad things rather than good things.
Yeah.
And that's why we should fear them,
Mhm.
like, greatly.
Almost 100% of the time, a skinwalker, when it did change, had some type of malice or desire for more power,
Right.
which is automatically corrupting force right there.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, that creeps me out. I'm literally, like, getting goosebumps all over myself because that just freaks me out.
And I don't think the mics are picking it up, but it just started raining too.
Ugh.
So they definitely, if that's not a sign that they know that we're talking about them, I don't know what is.
Right? If it gets, like, 10 degrees colder, I'm out. Like, I'm literally out. No, I'm gonna stay in because the skinwalkers want you to come out.
If we start hearing Mom's voice out this window saying, "Let me in, kids,"
My pants will need to be changed. No.
Well, first off,
That
when
freaks me out.
skinwalkers would come into the area, it's not the same as spirits or ghosts. A skinwalker would not change the degree of the weather. They
I
are
know,
still a
I'm
living
just
creature.
I'm just meaning, like, you can feel when a presence is near you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a definite change in the climate and your surroundings when
Yeah.
something is near. Even another human, that doesn't mean you harm. You can still feel when
Yeah.
someone's close to you.
You
I
mean
don't
like
know
when the
why.
hairs on the back of your neck rise up?
Like when
Like
you're sitting in
Olympus.
traffic, you can feel somebody watching you.
Yeah.
And you can feel
can
that
just
when you're
feel it.
sitting at home alone, you can feel somebody watching you.
Mm-hmm.
As Lindsay's itching the back of her neck, maybe the hairs are standing up.
Maybe.
It's
Can you see them yet?
It's starting early.
Alright, so we got some stories here I found on the internet. The interwebs. I don't know where I found them. I don't know who wrote some of these stories. I think I might have got some names for some, but I can't remember. There's a lot of stories here, so let's get into these stories. So this happened about 12 years ago. My family owns a farm in the heart of Indian Reservation. One winter I was home for Christmas taking care of the farm while my parents were away Christmas shopping. As I was home by myself, way late in the night, I hear all of our cows freaking out. I knew it had to be the wild dogs that are rampant in the area, so I throw on some boots and grab a shotgun, load it up, and head out to the field. This was a perfect scenario for a horror movie. It was cloudy, but there was a full moon, and it was breaking through the clouds just right to light up all the snow. I ran out into the middle of the field, and just in time I see two dogs. They were standing up, facing each other and fighting. I think perfect, 2 for 1. So I pump a shell into the chamber of Mr. 12 gauge, and then it happened. The 2 dogs heard the rack. They both stopped, looked over at me, and ran away on their back legs.
Yeah.
Immediately I froze, and every ghost story about skinwalkers and all their native legends I grew up with flew through my mind. Keep in mind, I am a white guy, and up until then, these were all just boogeyman stories the native kids like to tell to scare us. That night, they became real to me.
Yeah,
That creeps me out.
I'm telling you, they will always tell you that you will know the difference between a real animal and when the skinwalker is imitating because they can't get it perfect.
Right.
No matter how hard they try. At first, it may seem correct, but if you watch it long enough, you will notice these little things that are wrong, and then eventually it gets to where it's like, okay, that's not a coyote, that's something else.
Mm-hmm. For a while there, on Mom's property, that Cleo, she came around,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like right after we were getting into like talking about skinwalkers a lot as just a family thing, you know?
Right.
And she come around and she had like bright red eyes, I'm guessing from dehydration.
Hmm.
And it literally like freaked me out. I didn't want to touch her because I was scared of her for the longest time because I'm like, she's skinwalker, does she have rabies or something? I don't want to touch her. And then like eventually she got to drinking more water and her eyes are now like a yellowy orange. So it's like, it's cool now. But when she first got there, she had like bright red eyes and it freaked me out. I don't know if you can hear that, but we're raining pretty bad over here. Not real bad. I mean, it's been worse, but, you know.
Right.
So do you want to take this next one, Alex?
Sure, I can take it. Alright, this is how this story goes. I was spending a month with my cousins at my grandma's house. It was August and my cousins' ages ranged from 10 to 15, and I was the oldest, being 15. I was staying with a 10, 13, and a 14-year-old. We stayed up telling scary stories often, but one night, a few weeks in, we decided to make a campfire out back. My grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to her house, but in the backyard, it's thick forest with man-made paths through it. Each house is on a hill, so only part of the basement was actually underground. That isn't important until later, though. So, we're towards the east side of her yard in a smallish patch of open land. You couldn't see the neighboring yards from there, and there was probably 3/4 a mile to each side of us that belonged to my grandma. It was maybe 11 at night, and we were playing Truth or Dare after telling scary stories. My 14-year-old cousin dared me and the 13-year-old to go walk through the paths for 10 minutes or so. I said yes right away, as I wasn't easily scared and rather level-headed, but my younger cousin was a bit more hesitant. We didn't bring a flashlight because it wasn't pitch dark yet, and we could see enough to not die. We were walking through the paths for about 5 minutes and could barely see the fire through the trees when we decided to turn. In the middle of the path was a large dog-like creature, hunched over with its front hands an inch from the ground. What I remember most was how its eyes were so bright white, and it was humanoid dog-shaped with a human-like head but a dog-like body, but human hands and feet. It looked right at us, and I knew I was paralyzed with fear as it dashed away the opposite way from us, toward a creek that ran through the yard. Eventually my cousin and I screamed bloody murder, and the other cousins and my grandma ran to us. I don't remember much here, because I was really disoriented and I couldn't think properly, but I did wake up in bed, so I assumed that I was brought up to the house. All the kids slept in the basement, in a big room with sliding glass doors to the outside, as the room is on the side that wasn't underground. My bed was pressed against a big glass window, and I could see my cousins playing outside down below. The house is in Michigan, so it gets slightly chilly, even in the end of August, and there was a slight breeze, so I put on a jacket and ran to join them outside, skipping breakfast, not wanting to miss out on anything fun. When I got down, I could tell they weren't playing, but rather running to get my grandma. Her dogs, both of them, were dead, ripped up. That night we went to bed early. I woke up at maybe 2 in the morning because I felt something hit my head. My cousins were all sitting on the double bed opposite me on the other side of the room. There was one bunk bed and 2 double beds. The double beds for me and my 14-year-old cousin. They were being quiet and staring at me. The 13-year-old nodded his head toward the window, and I froze. They all looked afraid. I turned my head slightly to the side, and I saw a really messed up looking face pressed against the window with gaping eyes looking down at me. I screamed so loud that it bolted. My grandma called the police after I told her what happened, and they found nothing. I went home after that, and I've never been there during the night again.
Oh, that one gives me the chills so bad. Like, that's the fact that it was like a humanoid, like, dog, but it had human head, hands, and feet.
Was
it's
it human?
Just not right.
Did it say human head or did it say dog head?
Human.
I think it had a human head and like a human face.
But it was a dog body.
But it was a dog body.
That's
That's
like
just
I said,
messed up.
like I said earlier, it's one of those things they can't recreate perfectly
Right.
what they're trying to do.
And you, like, if someone ever, like, describes something that's like that, you know that it's a skinwalker and not anything else. Like, everything else is distinct. Skinwalkers aren't. They can be a mixture of multiple different creatures, and that's what, like, ugh,
And also,
I hate it.
if you're gonna make something up, why make up that?
Right.
Just say it was a Bigfoot.
Right.
Anybody would say, "Oh, a Bigfoot." Obviously, we know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a dog person with human hands and feet and a human face, but the rest of the body looked like a dog.
Like, you can't
Anybody
just
who's
make
going to
that
hear
up.
that is going to say,
You're psychotic. Go
That's-
to the hospital.
that's completely ludicrous. Why would somebody make that up?
That just freaks me out.
And especially this kid was, what, 15?
15.
At 15
And the
years
younger
old.
kids saw it too, so they can vouch for it.
Right. But at 15, why would you make up something like that? Just say
Right.
Bigfoot. Everybody's heard of Bigfoot.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
everybody has heard of man dog.
Right.
The interesting thing, though, you keep on saying that they can't become identical to the creature they're trying to replace. But in lots of cultures, including even as far back as the Viking culture, we find very strong cases where they would, for example, in war efforts, when they were at war with another tribe or another group in Germany and the old Germanic tribes, they have tales of soldiers that would take on the form of animals, very powerful animals. Even though they looked identical to an animal, they could walk on their hind feet like a human. You know, they could follow a lot of human traits. So even though everything would have looked like a wolf, it could walk. Certain people
No.
confuse that with werewolfism, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
One thing that you said there was that Alex said that they can't fully turn into a human. He didn't actually say that. He said that it's really difficult for them to turn fully into an animal. They can't get it perfectly every time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they might come through a little messed up. Whereas, like, a real dog doesn't walk on its hind legs for...
Right.
You know what I mean? So...
Like, and even to say, it might look perfectly identical to a
Mhm.
wolf, but
But
as
it's
soon
just
as you watch it
something's
move,
wrong about
you're
it.
like, that's no wolf. Like you
Something's
said,
wrong.
an animal, like you said, they would walk on their hind legs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what an animal does. You know, bears do it for like 3 feet and then they go right back down because they're not really good at it.
The funny thing is, the Navajos would speak more of wolves, owls, coyotes, and all of those, where a lot of the northern tribes would actually lean more towards bears. it was very common for the old stories that people would come in as a bear.
Right.
They didn't look the same with disagreement upon skinwalkers as a lot of Navajoan people did, which is kind of unique. So I wonder if there isn't two different species of skinwalker. In the old, I can't remember if it's Comanche or it's something somewhere up in Canada, their tribes was believed strongly that the people could take on the form of a bear as a protector of the tribe.
Right.
Which would follow along the skinwalker idea without the evilness.
Right.
So I've always wondered.
It's certainly an interesting idea if there's any correlation there, you know. If there's any sort of parallels to be drawn. I mean, it's certainly, you know, you do hear stories of them, you know, they would take on the form of the eagle because of how fierce it was, and they could scout out, you know.
And once again, it was some of those that were very much in tune with their naturistic side, along with like the medicine men. That was their big thing. But in certain tribes, it was not considered an evil.
Right.
And that often makes me wonder, well, are they the same thing or aren't they?
It's certainly an idea. Some would look on it and say that the native peoples were very metaphorical. They weren't very good at similes in their things that they would draw and things like that. Instead of saying that he was fierce like a bear, they would just say he was a bear, right? So one might say it's possible that it's just a translation error, and this all this like shape shifting that people would have done. It's possible it's just translation error, but if it isn't translation, and these people really did transform into bears to go into battle, that's a really interesting thing that needs to be looked into.
Well, see, the funny thing is, not only did those Indian tribes say that they turned into bears, wolves, eagles, but the Vikings also said the same thing.
Yep.
They believed very strongly that the people turned into other animals, and that's why they made all their weapons with the face of an animal.
Right.
I mean, there's some really unique stories about that.
I know that there was a big practice of carving into the helmet of their armor. They'd quite often carve the face of a wolf because it was fierce. It would, you know, and whether that, like I said, whether that's actual transformation or whether it's just metaphorical speak, because they didn't use like or as, they didn't use simile, they used metaphors. We don't really know, but it's something that needs to be looked into because it's certainly interesting.
Well, do we want to get into the next story, Brian?
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's see what these next stories say, and then we can...
I'm very curious about this.
All right, so this is your story, Brian. Take it away.
This all happened about 5 years ago. One night, a few of my friends decided after a night of hanging out that we'd go on an adventure at about 3 a.m. We took a ride about 50 miles to this old Spanish ruins called the Coray in New Mexico that was once the seat of the Inquisition. I can't for the life of me remember what the place is called. So we jumped the front gate to the place and started exploring. One of my friends brought a flute with him, and he started playing it. About 30 seconds into his mediocre playing, something started screaming really, really loud on the tops of the long destroyed walls of the place. It was going from wall to wall really quick, screaming the most blood-curdling scream you've ever imagined. We got out of there. One of my friends pissed his pants and drove for a few hours to Bandelier National Monument, where we planned for camp out at for the rest of the weekend. We got to Bandelier at probably like 6 or 7 a.m. and set up our camp. After a few hours just talking about what the heck happened at the ruins, I went to take a piss, probably only like 300 feet from our camp. This is where everything starts getting a little fuzzy. I remember seeing 2 dust devils coming my way, and when I turned around again, 2 of my friends were there, and they were motioning me to follow them. I couldn't help but to follow them like I was being pulled behind them in shackles. I followed them for what seemed like 10 or 15 minutes, and I snapped out of it. These weren't my friends. They had bright red hair with my friends' faces and cat eyes. Both of these friends were brunette. I stopped walking, and they looked at me with the most terrifying gaze I've ever seen. Monsters in movies are nothing compared to this. I turned around and ran as fast as I could back the way I came from. After like 5 minutes of a full sprint, I got back to that rock that I pissed at and found our camp. Everyone was there, still sitting around talking, and didn't even notice that I was gone. I told them what happened with the look-alike Skinwalkers, and we packed up everything and left probably within like 10 minutes and got the heck back to Albuquerque.
That's really... See, that's like with the dog with the human hands.
Mm-hmm.
Bright red hair and cat eyes? What do you... What
It
is...
just freaks us out.
And there you can find clearly that even a Skinwalker can sometimes take a human form.
If you're gonna make something up, why would you make up that? There's something to it. There has to be. If you're gonna make up something that sounds so ridiculous, there has to be something to it. Right?
You would think, yes.
Do we want to go into the next one and save all of our comments for the end?
Yeah, let's go into the next one.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I love these. This is like, ugh, it gets me.
Oh,
I'm like freaked out.
looks like this next
Yeah.
one here has an actual the writer.
So
Has
this
their
one
names. That's
comes
really cool.
from Reddit, from a poster, or I don't know how Reddit names their people of their subscribers or however that works, but their name is A Boy Named Pseudonym.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nice.
he says,
Nice name on Reddit.
right,
Congratulations on that. I like that.
he says, I posted on another thread, but it was so long I didn't want to hijack the comments of a good story. I am not Navajo, and boy have I heard a lot of stories growing up on the reservation. While I've never seen anything myself, which I'm grateful for, I've been benefited by being around the people who have. Here's a different kind of evil that exists. There is a different kind of evil that exists in the quiet high deserts and deep sandstone canyons of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, even Colorado, in the southern... What's
Ute.
that? Ute area.
Uti area.
I don't know. I can only describe it as an ancient evil now. There are helpful ceremonies, rituals, and traditions that are still practiced to this day. Hell, even a local hospital has an on-duty medicine man. But it seems to be a double-edged sword. What I mean is there is also black magic, which most Navajo will not even acknowledge or speak of. We are very superstitious and are heavy with taboos. You will find this with most First Nation people. From Alaska to Argentina, it's just something you don't do, in fear that it will get attention from unwanted spirits or harmful beings. Skinwalkers are just a few stories that kept me up at night with the covers over my head. Here's a quick one for you guys. A Navajo tribal police officer was driving west on what used to be officially named as Highway 666. It was light snowy, maybe a quarter inch, which is a lot of snow for home. And he sees an old woman walking on the side of the road. How she got there or where she was going to was not apparent because she was far out in the middle of nowhere. He didn't see her right away, but as he passes, he noticed that she is dressed in traditional clothing, a shawl, dress, moccasins, and her hair in the traditional bun. Not too odd, many elders still choose to dress traditionally.
Right.
But why she was out in such cold weather this late at night, hitchhiking maybe? He passed her too quickly and now has to turn around, and as he makes a U-turn, he notices she is nowhere to be seen. This is fairly flat terrain, and he for sure seen an old woman walking. He pulls the squad car over and steps out with his flashlight. Confused, he manages to find the woman's footprints in the shallow snow. He follows the footprints until they suddenly turn into what look like dog footprints, leading away from the road in a hurry. He immediately jumps back into the squad car and meets up with another officer near his patrol. He is a little shaken up, but asks the other officer if he's ever seen anything like that. The officer tells him that he has. He also explains that sometimes it's a very old woman, sometimes it's a very beautiful young girl, but always on that road, always in the snow, waiting for the right good Samaritan to let her into their car. I still get nervous driving those wide open spaces at night. I keep my eyes strictly on the road and turn my music up high. I rarely pick up hitchhikers, but I never pick them up at night. That creeps me out.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
There's another one that has a name.
Yeah.
So this next story we found on Reddit was written by Kung Fu Punch. That's also a really nice name. I like that. That's funny.
No, we haven't actually included their full story. This is actually just the end. We haven't included his full post,
Right.
his full comment, but this is the end of his comment that I found, and it just freaked me out like something else.
Right.
So I thought, why not keep this one if it's pretty freaky, you know?
Yeah.
So take it away, Alex.
Alright, so Kung Fu Punch. Here's your story being read. He was solo camping and awoke in the middle of the night to someone hovering over his face. A figure in skins and rags. He said it smelled of death and gave him the overwhelming feeling of pure evil. Understandably, he was paralyzed by fear, but managed to blurt out a short prayer to Christ. And the thing reared back and screamed a terrible sound and took off on all fours into the woods. That's... For me, it's the fact that it screamed and ran on all fours. That's what I think is the creepiest part.
Could you imagine there just be sleeping in your little sleeping bag in the middle of the woods,
Right.
mind your own business, just having to sleep, you know, so you can wake up and keep doing whatever you're doing the next day. And you just you get awoken by something and you open your eyes and there's something hovering above you.
No,
looking down at you.
No, thank you.
Like, what do you think? Like,
I don't want that in my life.
right? It just freaks me out. So now we're going to do some facts about Skinwalkers.
Yeah.
I think we have... How many do we have? 14, and there's 3 of us. So we'll just keep going until they're all gone. So, Brian, you want to take the first one?
Facts. A skinwalker is a person with the ability to transform into any different type of animal at will.
Number 2. They're most frequently seen as coyotes, wolves, foxes, eagles, owls, or crows.
Number 3, some can also steal the faces of different people and could appear as someone you know.
The interesting thing about that fact is that they can appear as someone you know, but how do they know who to imitate if they haven't already been observing?
Right.
Isn't that a little bit creepy?
It's an idea that if they do show up as somebody you know, it means that they've been watching you for a while.
Yeah.
That freaks me out.
Right. That's that goosebump moment right there when you realize that. Ooh.
If you accidentally lock eyes with a skinwalker, they can absorb themselves into your body and take control of your actions.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've actually never, in all the stories I've read and all the stories I've dealt with,
Right.
I've never heard of that happening.
Well, it's kind of like that story with the 2 dust devils that the guy looked over and saw his friends. He started walking without even wanting to.
Mm-hmm.
They
So
just
maybe
took
that-
control of them.
But that's
made
where
him
that comes
walk.
from. That idea.
Even though it says that can happen, it doesn't seem like it's as common,
Right, like maybe they don't even need to use that ability as often.
right?
But when they use it to good effect. Very freaky.
Number 5. Rare skinwalkers can also have the ability to enchant the powder of corpses and use the substance as a poison dust on victims.
Ooh, that's a really interesting one.
Mm.
Number 6, the legend of the Skinwalkers originates from the Navajo, a southwestern Native American tribe.
Which
And-
we've,
Seems
Yeah.
evident at this point.
yeah.
In the Navajo language, the word skinwalker is Yi Nagloshi and translates to he who walks on all fours.
8. Skinwalkers have only entered the public discourse relatively recently compared to other phenomenon. In 1996, a team of scientists ventured to Utah Ranch to investigate a series of bizarre phenomenon.
And keep number 8 in mind, because that's what I have written down on my... I got some notes here, folks, and that particular ranch in Utah, you're going to hear a whole lot about that.
That's awesome. I'm excited.
Who's number 9?
I think you're number 9.
Number 9. If their other powers weren't enough, skinwalkers are also said to be able to run incredibly long distances, some say over 200 miles in one evening.
Ugh.
Skinwalkers have a tendency to hang around graveyards and can dig up graves at an impossibly fast speed.
That freaks me out.
Mm.
Number 11. While they can take many forms, many people who see them today describe them as hollowed out dog-like animals.
Hollowed out. That's really interesting.
So maybe they wear the animal's skin? I don't know. I'm
Really?
confused.
I almost feel like that term hollowed out could almost be used as a way of saying that, like, that way of saying it's not perfect. Something doesn't feel right when you look at them. They don't look like they're fully there.
Right.
It's like a suit of armor would move different than actually having a man inside that suit of armor.
Right.
Right. Is this mine?
Mm-hmm.
Number 12. Skinwalkers are said to recruit more skinwalkers themselves. There is some dispute in how this happens, but some say that there is an official ceremony, and that skinwalkers only take their form with a gathering of people and specific chants.
Mm.
With all of their advantages, it's said that you can kill a skinwalker if you call them by their true name.
Their
Human
human
name.
name. Yeah.
That's like Rumpelstiltskin, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
how you beat him, right? If you say his name.
But he was a little bit different. He was a leprechaun.
Right.
I'm over here
It's-
thinking about Beetlejuice, and I'm like, if you say Beetlejuice's name too many times, Beetlejuice is gonna come get you. Didn't I just say his name
Like-
3 times?
like Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
There's actually something to that, and that is that people have said that names have power.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You should never, like if you're doing like a Ouija board, never ask its name. Because if you know its name, you've given it power.
Serious.
Yep, that's a thing.
Not
they
only
say.
that, but if you ask its name, you are actually able to hold power also.
True. A name is a very powerful thing.
There used to be different groups of natives that would not give out their true name
Mm-hmm.
for the very purpose that they didn't want anything to have control or power over them.
And even the Japanese today, they have naming conventions where they will have a name they give to a stranger and a name that's only known amongst their friends and family,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very interesting thing.
Cool. Number 14. Skinwalkers are most commonly encountered near native reservations, though they have been seen all over the United States. Some people believe the rake, which we're going to talk about later,
Mm-hmm.
which is commonly encountered in the Northeast, is similar to a skinwalker.
Right.
Interesting. So
The-
that's everything I found about skinwalkers.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the rake, like Lindsay said, we will do an episode on the rake at some point, and I can't wait for that. The rake is, I don't know what you guys know about the rake. Well, we'll get into it at some other point when we do
Yeah.
the episode. But
I'm excited. I like the rake.
rake is very interesting.
I like rakes too. They're nice to rake up leaves. Oh wait, what?
Okay.
We got a comedian over here, folks.
Right.
All right, so you guys ready to? Do we want to talk a bit before we get into this?
Why don't we get into what you're talking, and then we'll just talk about it at the end. We've still got about 30 minutes or so.
Well, you look like you were gonna bring something up. I want to hear it.
I have a couple different things to bring up.
Okay.
Lindsay and I watched a show the other day on TV. I mean, not on TV, on Netflix.
Is this about skinwalkers?
It's similar, yes. But
Sorry.
I just want to make sure.
talking about having the power by speaking their real name.
Mm.
Remember that movie we watched the other day with that guy that was like to kill other people? If you could get their true name and see a picture of them in your head.
Oh, Death Note.
Yeah, Death Note.
I like that movie and
The
the
anime?
show.
It's,
We only watched
there's
one
not-
episode of the anime, but they made an American movie.
Oh,
called
the
Death
Netflix
Note.
series?
Yeah.
I've heard that it's actually kind of okay.
it is actually. It's
We
pretty good.
like the movie.
And I like the animated series
It
even.
has William Dafoe in it, is that his name? And he plays Rhea.
Willem Dafoe?
What?
The Green Goblin in the
Yeah.
first Spider-Man movie?
Yeah, and he plays Rhea.
But that being said, I'm not sure where I got this story from. But I can't
She-
remember if I watched it on Netflix probably. But there's a story of this young girl who wants to fall in love with this young man.
Okay.
And this is in early colonial days America.
Alright.
And this girl wants this man to fall in love with him, to adore her every step. But she sees that he's falling for another woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she can't stand it. So she goes and talks to a medicine woman nearby, who in turn tells her, well, how much are you going to pay for this? She says, well, I can't pay anything. The woman says, oh, well, then we'll charge you the price. There is a price out to be paid, but we'll make sure that he loves you.
Right.
It was this potion she was supposed to slip into his drink, and she did so, but in so doing, she gave her soul over and became an actual skinwalker. At that time, they were called witches.
Interesting.
And the lady who did this was also a witch, was getting somebody, like they said, she was converting other skinwalkers to her group.
Huh.
And this guy did fall in love with her, but she couldn't stand it because it felt so fake.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the curse that was on her now. So she made a deliberate choice to actually accept the curse for the purpose of having a young man fall in love with her. And it goes to talk about how they try to hunt her down. And she's able to turn from a frog into a panther or cougar. And it's really unique. I wish I could remember what the story was. If any of you ever have seen it before and know the name, maybe you can put it in the comments below.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen it not that long ago, and it's really stuck in my head. And now I'm doing Skinwalkers, and it brings it all back.
Right. Yeah, leave that if you know what it is, leave it in the comments. I wouldn't mind actually reading that. That sounds
that'd be
interesting.
kind of cool.
I'll look it up too. I know I have it in one of my past videos I've watched lately. I just can't remember where.
Right.
But there's another thing. I've often wondered if I've actually had hands-on experience with a skinwalker.
Could be.
Well, let's say that until after we're finished talking about Alex's thing, and then you can talk about your thing.
Okay.
Because I'm really excited to hear
Yeah.
this.
First-hand encounter is certainly something that we should save for like the finale.
Yeah, I like it. I'm so excited. Ugh.
Alright.
Okay, let's get into it. I'm being
So-
crazy here. I want to hear you free think right now. I want to know everything you know about this. Because you have 3 full pages of stuff.
Right.
So I know it's all good. Because you don't write down anything that's not good.
No, I never write down much, but this time I've written down. I wrote down a lot for this one. This is about Skinwalker Ranch. That's what they call it. In a town called Ballard, Utah, in the West Uinta County, parallel to the Ute Indian Reservation. There's a place there called Skinwalker Ranch. Now, this ranch is called Skinwalker Ranch because the Utes say that this ranch lies within the path of the Skinwalker. And this is the path that they take when they travel through the Indian Reservation. They travel right through this ranch. So it is called the Skinwalker Ranch.
Cool.
Now, a lot of work has been done at the Skinwalker Ranch by a man named George Knapp. He was,
What?
I've heard that name before.
Okay, cool.
and he
I'm excited.
He was teamed up with this team called NIDS, which is the National Institute of Discovery Science, who are they are like a strike team for anything paranormal, supernatural, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They show up, anytime they hear something has been seen, they go right to that location. They're like the first responders, right?
Okay, cool.
And he worked with them, and they worked with the people who bought this ranch, who have shared all of this information about the things they've seen at this ranch, starting from day one. The first day of buying the ranch and moving onto the property, this is what happened.
Ugh.
On the first day, this is literally day one. This is the first. They drove onto the ranch, getting all their boxes out of their
So like
their
move
vehicles, moving into the place.
in. Okay.
They looked over, and they saw this giant wolf. This wolf, probably about 5 feet tall, at the top of the shoulder. It walks over to the group, and they thought it was somebody's pet, because it was just walking around, not doing anything, just kind of walking around. And and the horses were sticking their noses through the corral fence, smelling this wolf. This wolf bites one of the horses' noses. And so the people who move in, they're like, well, we gotta get rid of this wolf. This wolf is attacking our animals. So they get a pistol, a revolver. They shoot it. They shoot it 4 times. Nothing. It just stands there and looks at them. They go in and they get a rifle, a big hunting rifle, right?
Mm-hmm.
They shoot it 2 more times with this rifle. On the last shot, on the 6th shot, a chunk of meat falls off of this thing. And when they went back to the meat later, they said it was rotten.
Ooh.
And it was like necrotic, like it was turning black already. They followed this thing. On the 6th shot, it started running off into the pastures.
Mm-hmm.
And they followed this thing. And they followed it through this muddy terrain so they could see the paw prints in the mud, right? And they're following it, and they're following it, and they're following it. Eventually, they get to where it's just paw print, and then nothing. It's gone.
Oh, that creeps me out. Where is it?
It's a 5-foot tall wolf.
How
Where
could you
could
miss
it have
it?
gone?
Right? Did it climb a tree or something?
There's just open pasture, a big open field.
You have to
Right?
wonder, did they think to look for human footprints?
I don't know.
You would have saw the continuance though, and would have like, whoa, wait a minute, what the heck's going on here? Oh, that creeps me out. And that was on day 1 when they first
day.
moved in. I've been like, nope, I'm out.
Something else on the first
It would be
day.
kind of cool to like invite people over.
Right.
Like, come look at this.
Something else on the first day. They showed up and they realized, they looked at the house and they saw on either side of the doorways, on the exterior doors,
Mm-hmm.
there were these big iron stakes pounded into the ground with big chains attached to the stakes that they figured was guard dogs that they had chained up outside the doors.
Yeah.
That's what they figured these were for. And they noticed that all the doors, exterior and interior doors, had bolts on both sides of the doors. So that they could lock something into a room or keep themselves out of that room. Whether it's just a closet, a bedroom door, even the bathroom door. Double bolted.
Oh, jeez.
They thought that was kind of interesting. This was a thing that happened a little bit later on. They had 4 prized bulls. These were expensive bulls that all of a sudden disappeared from their corral. They came back one day, they were gone. And they were like, this is awful. These bulls are like, these are money animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need these things. The father happens to look into this small metal cattle hauler, right? You're meant to like put like one in at a time. These bulls can't travel together. They'll rip each other to pieces.
Right.
They get angry. He looks inside. All 4 of them are stuffed inside of this hauler.
Oh, jeez.
And the padlock, is still locked.
So something put them in there.
And when he found them, they were in a trance-like state. That's what he said. They were just standing there like they were asleep, with their eyes open. And
More
as soon
dazed.
as-
Like dazed and confused.
Yeah, like they were in a daze. And as soon as he hollered to his wife, he's like, "Hey, they're in here." They immediately snapped out of it, and they went nuts, and they started banging the inside of the inside of the hauler and everything, just causing a ruckus.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, they started having poltergeist-like activity, things moving around when not paid any attention to. Like, for instance, the father was out digging holes with a post hole digger.
Mm-hmm.
He set it down, got his bottle of water, took a sip of water, put it down, looked back over, post hole digger was gone. He later found it 75 feet away and up in the top of a tree.
Oh, God. So something came right up to him.
And he never even had any idea.
It just ran up and took it.
And it was a 1 second, he looked away for a second to take a sip of water.
Jeez.
The mom got home with groceries. She went grocery shopping, and she put the grocery table, or the bags, on the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
She went into the bathroom, came back out, or no, she put the grocery bags onto the table, put the groceries into the cupboard,
Mm-hmm.
went to the bathroom, got back, all the groceries were put back into the bags, and back on the table.
Sounds like they're dealing with a ghost.
Right.
But that's pretty freaky.
Later, they started seeing shadow figures all over the property. And they would see them like in their windows. And eventually it got to the point where they would see them at the foot of their bed. They'd
Ooh.
wake up and there'd be shadow figures standing there.
That's freaky.
They would hear heavy footsteps outside their bedroom door. They would hear disembodied voices speaking in foreign languages that they couldn't understand.
Mm.
Like there was this one time where they went outside. They heard these voices coming from the outside, so they went outside. And they could hear 10 feet above their heads these disembodied voices speaking in a language that they didn't understand.
Oh, wow.
They actually started like talking back to them, and then the voices actually started mocking them
Sorry
and making
about
fun
that.
of them. And then they went silent.
Mm.
This doesn't sound like ghosts. This sounds more like imps.
Oh, don't
Huh?
even talk about imps. We're gonna go on those another day. Those freak me out.
It keeps going. We're only just now down to the bottom of the first page. They felt like they were being watched all the time, basically. They said that it felt like somebody knew what they were going to do before they did it. Like something was anticipating what they were going to do.
Oh, jeez.
Like something knew that they were going to go outside before they even went outside. That sort of a thing.
Huh?
They would hear loud mechanical noises underneath the ground.
Ooh.
They said it sounded like a train station under the ground.
How the heck?
It was Underground Railroad.
The Underground Railroad. That's funny.
Well. Okay, then.
There was one time where they looked out into their field of horses. They had all the horses out.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who made a return? They saw that giant wolf again.
Oh.
But it wasn't alone this time. This time it was accompanied by a dog that looked like it was kind of like bigger than a regular dog, but nowhere near as big as the wolf. But the problem was that the head was too small for its body. So it was a pretty big dog, but with a tiny head.
Okay.
And they were like running around the horses and like chasing the horses around,
Oh,
and,
jeez.
like nipping at their heels.
Well, I guess their butts, if you're 5 foot tall, on
Right.
their shoulders.
Biting their tails and stuff like that. They would see tropical looking birds. Like
Okay.
birds that look like they came out of the Amazon. And this is like in the middle of Utah,
Right.
where there's no such thing as tropical birds. There was one time where the father went out and he said that he saw a creature that looked like a hyena with a big bushy tail. And it was attacking, he said it was attacking the horses. And it ran, as soon as it saw him coming, it ran away and literally disappeared into thin air.
Mm.
Like poof, it was gone. Like when you watch Harry Potter go behind the blanket that makes him disappear. You know? The invisibility cloak. On to page 2. This is when they started seeing UFO type things. They were very confused by this. They would see all these different types of like orbs of light that were like UFOs. They would see white ones that would zip through the trees. There were red ones that would bother the animals all the time. They would like go in and out of like the cows in the field and like they'd fly around them and chase them around.
Mm-hmm.
They would see these blue ones, which were like, they said it looked like a glass ball with blue boiling liquid inside. And these would, when they saw them, they had this like irrational fear response. They just freaked out completely for no reason, and they knew it was irrational.
Mm-hmm.
It just freaked them out. Then they would start seeing just typical like UFOs that looked like discs in the sky. There was a triangular UFO that looked like it had Christmas lights all over it, and it would shine down a spotlight all over the ranch. Looked like it was searching for something. Speaking of spotlights, they would randomly see a spotlight that would just come down from the sky with nothing above it. And sometimes even would come up through the ground. A spotlight
Just a beam of light.
that just came up from the ground or down from the sky. They would sometimes see what looked like a hole in the sky that would fly around, and that they could see another sky through it, and that other orbs would fly in and out of.
Oh, jeez.
Like if it was daytime, they would see this hole, and it would look like they could see a night sky inside the hole.
Right.
Like there was, like it was an opening to another dimension. There was a smaller triangular UFO that landed outside of the house, and this happened to the wife. She was home alone when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
A small triangular UFO landed outside of the house, and this tall guy, like this door opens on it, and this tall guy, he walks over to what looks like a desk, and he sits down at it, and he just starts watching in the windows and just writing stuff down.
Oh, gosh.
And she calls the husband, she's like, you better get home right now, something's not right here, you know. And later they went out and they found size 14 boot prints out in the dirt.
Mm.
Assuming that they came from this tall guy at the desk. They would find scoop marks in the ground. Completely at random. Hundreds of pounds of dirt being scooped up at a time and taken away. And there's no tread marks in the dirt or anything like that.
It just disappeared.
Just the dirt's just being scooped up and taken away. Very confusing. One time this person shows up at the gate of the ranch, and he starts knocking on the ranch and yelling for someone to come over, and the husband and the son show up and they talk to this guy, and he says, "Hey, I need to get on your property right now. I need to meditate on this property, right?" And so they're kind of laughing at him, and they say, "All right, well, you know what? You can come in here and do whatever you have to do," because they're thinking they're just gonna get a quick laugh out of this guy. They think he's pretty funny, and he gets in their pickup, and they're driving through the ranch, and they reach a spot, and the guy's like, "This is it. Stop. This is where I need to meditate." So he gets out of the car and he goes over, and he gets down and on his knees and he starts meditating. And he's meditating for a little while, and all of a sudden they hear what sounds like a cowbell ringing. They're very confused because none of the cows on the ranch have any bells. They don't put bells on their cows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they hear this cowbell, and then all of a sudden they see over in the bushes what looks like the Predator from the Predator movies, like how he's like invisible, but you can see like the shimmering sort of outline of him. They see this thing over in the bushes. It then runs towards the guy who's meditating. He doesn't see it because he's got his eyes closed, and even if they were open, he might not have seen it coming.
Mm-hmm.
It runs up to him, and then it lets out this incredibly loud like roar. That you could hear it all throughout the entire ranch, everywhere, probably. And this guy's like, he stands up and he's obviously shaken because this thing just roared at him for no reason, and he tells them that this ranch is cursed, the devil is here, and I need to leave right now. So they take him to the exit of the ranch, and he leaves. One time, the Native American, like the reservation police, they have their own police out on the reservations.
Mm-hmm.
They were out there on the property, and they came across two people wearing jackets smoking cigarettes. They thought, now I wonder who's out here smoking cigarettes, right? This is out in the middle of nowhere. There shouldn't be any kids out here smoking cigarettes. So they go up to these two people smoking cigarettes, and they tell them, "Hey, what's going on out here?" They turn around, and it's dogs.
Oh, jeez.
It's dogs wearing trench coats smoking cigarettes. The guys turn to look at each other, and when they look back, the dogs are gone. And they walk over to the spot where they were standing, and there's cigarette butts on the ground. But there's no dogs wearing trench coats. Then they started seeing sights of what you'd consider to be a Sasquatch, big hairy guy. They would be looking through their scopes, and they would see like the invisible guy walking all over the ranch. Like he would walk into the cows, and they would move aside as he would walk through them. So they knew something was walking through there.
They could feel it or see it.
Yeah, like they would move out of the way.
Right.
And you could see him walking through like water, because the water would splash and ripple and stuff. So they knew that something was walking, but he was invisible.
Right.
They would see crop circles that would just appear out of nowhere. Quite often they would be in like an 8-foot diameter, and there would be 3 of them in a triangular formation. Like an invisible craft would land right there and then leave.
Right.
At some point. 8 of their house cats disappeared completely at random. They had no idea.
Poor kitties.
There was a time where 3 of their hunting dogs started chasing one of the blue orbs around. They hear the dog scream, this like horrible scream like you'd never imagine that a dog could make. When they go out to the spot where they heard these dogs screaming, they find 3 greasy spots on the ground. No dogs. They never found the dogs, but they found the grease marks on the ground.
Aww.
They had 14 cattle mutilations the entire time they lived there. That's a lot of cattle to be found. And
Mutilated.
mutilation, as in like the typical UFO mutilation, where there's no organs, where there's not a single drop of blood, where there's, they find the cuts are made with an object that's sharper than a surgeon's scalpel.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? Don't ask me.
Like a laser.
We'll talk about UFOs at some point, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But one of which was the most strange cattle mutilation that they'd seen the entire time, was a newborn calf. That they when a newborn when a calf is born, they go out and tag him, right, in their ear. So they tagged this calf, and they went off, on another part of the ranch where they knew that there was another newborn calf that needed to be tagged. It was probably about half an hour walk to go over there. And probably only about 100 yards away from where they were. And they leave, and they have a dog with them. They started like keeping their dogs with them all the time, because the dogs would be able to hear, and like the dogs knew something was wrong. And so the people knew that, hey, the dog's acting up. Something's about to happen, so we need to be on edge.
Yeah.
And the dog starts acting up. The dog runs in the opposite direction from where the newborn calf was that they tagged, and they never saw the dog again. They went back to that spot, and the mom cow was there. Newborn calf mutilated.
Aww.
Literally 100 yards away, and it only probably about half an hour in between from when they had just seen it last.
Right.
It's only 100 yards away. What people could get in there and do that in only half an hour and not leave a single footprint.
Right.
Here we go. This is my favorite thing that they saw the entire time. This is just the craziest one. I think that this is insane.
Is this your end cap?
There's more.
I think you should save the craziest instance for last.
I'll do that.
Because I think that would be the icing on the cake.
One night, the father sees two creatures over by a tree.
Mm-hmm.
One of them looked like a bear, and the other one, he couldn't see it completely because it was up in the boughs of the tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he could see these large reptilian eyes, right? He shoots the one that looks like a bear, and it completely disappears, it just vanishes. And he shoots the reptilian one. It falls out of the tree, and then it lands in the snow. There's snow at the foot of this tree, all over the place, I'm sure. The next morning, they find a print in the snow that looks like a raptor foot.
Ugh.
Like from Jurassic Park,
right.
Like Velociraptor.
What in the heck?
Like, there's no animal on Earth right now that has a foot that resembles, as far as I know.
Would be a lizard.
Yeah, like
the closest is actually a cassowary or ostrich.
Any sort of big birds.
They claim that they're direct relations to the raptors.
Okay.
Like chickens are descendants of the T-Rex, I'm sure. So that's interesting. They find a cow outside of the barbed wire fence. They got a little, they got a place there where they keep them sometimes. And it's a barbed wire fence, and they find it outside. Well, actually, no. They look outside, and the cow's gone. The guy goes somewhere else. He looks back, and the cow is now outside of the fence, with its front legs broken.
Aww.
And so he's like, this is very strange. I don't know what this is. He goes back inside because he's going to get a gun to kill it.
Kill the cow. So
He goes back outside. The cow's gone again. He goes inside, puts the gun down, looks out the window. The cow's back out there. He goes out to it, and now its back legs are broken.
Oh, that poor thing.
In the same exact spot where he found it the first time.
Like I said, it sounds like somebody's funning with them.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like something's trying to fun with them.
Whatever it is, it can do this stuff without touching the ground because
Try to talk closer to your mic.
they never find any footprints ever. And when they do find footprints, they disappear in the middle.
Right.
Completely at random, They started
Sorry.
having alien abduction incidents where they would wake up in the morning with scars on their arm that they'd never seen before, and they'd find themselves in bed and an entire day would be gone of time and they would have no idea of where it went. There was this one time that they had a physicist come out, an actual scientific guy. He's like, all right, I'm going to explain all this. You people are just crazy. None of this is actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
They bring him out, and all of a sudden this black cloud appears out in the middle of the pasture, and it starts to formulate closer, and it starts to come towards them. It enters into this physicist, right into his back, and it all of a sudden the physicist says, "We're watching you. You're not welcome here." They say that this black cloud, it stuck with him for a while, and he was just not having a good time after that. He severe mood change for a week apparently. The guy just wasn't the same, and then as soon as he got off the property, he was okay after that. They started putting up cameras on poles to start seeing if they could see what was going on. And the first ever camera they put up, they went to the camera and they found it completely gutted.
Mm.
All of the stuff broken right out of the bottom of it. So they figured that's pointless. If they're just going to break the cameras, it's pointless even trying to do that. And now the final thing, and this is the thing that I think is the most creepy. Because of the way it's described.
I'm scared.
There was this one time where they saw a yellow orb. And they said they described it as what looked like a muddy snowball floating in the sky, right? And all of a sudden, this muddy snowball started stretching and expanding. And the guy was looking into it. He said over the radio, he's like, wait a second. I can see something inside of this long orb. And he realized that it was no longer an orb, it was actually a long tunnel that was forming. And he could see something inside of it. And that is when this thing started wiggling its way out of the tunnel and wriggling and writhing and pulling itself along. And it falls out of the tunnel and lands on the ground. And then it stands up. And he describes this thing as an 8-foot tall humanoid with black skin and no features whatsoever. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, nothing like that. It falls out, it stands up, and then it just takes off. Just starts running through the field. And this tunnel just dissipates into nothing. Where did it go?
What was it?
Why
First?
did it just land on the ground, stand up, and run away? Like it just escaped prison or something.
Right?
You know what I mean? So
Maybe it did.
some intergalactic prison, maybe it's an alien species. Could be.
I know. That was the weirdest thing about all that. Was
I
that
love reading that particular event.
It seemed like most of what they were dealing with was UFO stuff.
A lot of it was
Like,
like that.
The
Yeah.
groceries getting put away, the animals going missing, waking up and being scarred and cut and everything, you know?
Right.
A lot of it sounded like UFOs rather than skinwalkers.
But there's also the big dog with the tiny head.
Right. And that just doesn't seem right.
And the big wolf with the
But-
chunk of
Mhm.
necrotic flesh.
But
Right.
in Egypt, that was not uncommon to have dog creatures in their depictions of people from other worlds in the pyramids.
Right.
So, I'm sorry. So basically, it could be possible that the Egyptians were also dealing with the same species, and that's where they came up with their pictures and their hieroglyphs, and even the forms of some of their gods.
It's certainly interesting.
So, there was cats that were seen, dogs that were seen in the...
Like, there's a reason why Anubis is like the head of a dog on the body of a man.
Mhm.
Or, they're all like that. They're the head of an animal with the body of a person.
That's one reason why I seriously challenge the fact that they say that the Navajoans were the ones that started the legend of the Skinwalkers.
Right.
Because we find legends of Skinwalkers all the way back to early Bible times.
But did it say that they started skinwalkers?
It basically said that the legend started with the Navajoans.
I didn't hear that, but,
That's because you read it.
well, I don't remember reading that.
I noticed it and I really questioned it right away. I was like, I wonder. Well, you have it right there, don't you?
I already shut it off.
And, it's an interesting thing. It's not like the Navajo history only goes back a few hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
They have thousands of years of history. Back when they were still coming across the land bridge, the Bering Strait. Their history, I'm sure they share some oral history from that time as well. And who knows, but they were in Asia and then they propagated in that direction up to the northeast, eastwardly. Who knows, whether it was shared or whether it was, given to them. It's certainly interesting.
Sorry about that.
I don't know. It's
I just bit my tongue.
it's something. It took what we know as the First Nations people. It took them 10,000 years to finally get everything settled and travel everywhere. So who knows who got what from who?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we find almost every culture speaks of the Skinwalker to some extent.
Right.
I moved it further away.
Well, you said that you had a
Oh,
what
yeah,
could
yeah.
be a personal experience.
What was your experience?
We were kids. And of course we didn't believe in the paranormal as kids. We were good, strict Mennonite kids. We obeyed all the rules. But as I got older, I started to really question the facts of what actually happened. When we went out to Mexico, us boys used to spend a lot of time visiting the other cities. And this one city we went to visit, it was a good half a day's trek. It was a long trip.
Mhm.
And we used to go over there and help them with their farming and everything. So a couple of us had horses that we tamed and everything. A couple of us, we'd double up on the horses, or we'd walk, or we'd ride our bicycles. Well, this one night we saw something that was a little bit not too common to be seen. This guy on a horse. Nobody knew him. We asked people. Nobody else could explain who the guy was.
Right.
And in the Mexican towns, they're small. Everybody knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We were 5 towns away and from this place we were visiting, and everybody knew we were the missionary kids.
Right.
Well, you were like mainly only the white people there, right?
There was a couple others, but
Well,
we
yeah.
were one of the few. But the thing is, nobody knew who this guy was on this horse.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, he didn't move normal.
Well, first of all, can you remember? Describe him. Was he white like y'all, or was he?
No, he wasn't. He was.
Was he Latin?
He was
or something?
tall for a Mexican.
Okay.
He seemed, and this is where it's going to sound weird because maybe I've watched a couple too many movies, but he seemed like the perfect ideal image of a Mexican action hero. Like, for example, have you ever heard of Once Upon a Time in Mexico?
I've never seen it, but I'm sure people out there have.
Basically a mariachi guy.
Right.
This guy wore a traditional shawl. He was an older guy.
Right.
And he seemed more Indian than Mexican, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He seemed old. He got close enough we could see him.
Right.
But he was tall. He was riding a horse that nobody had ever seen.
Huh.
And you know all the horses out there unless they're the wild ones.
Right.
We talked to all the villages along the way. Nobody knew about it. But the thing that was really weird about it is the way he moved.
Huh.
We'd turn around and he'd be in a totally different place than where he was heading. Like he just quick dodged in and out real fast. Us boys, of course, we got spooked up. Once of us were walking, we all doubled up on the horses and took off out of there as fast as we could, jumping over fences and everything.
Wasn't he chasing you guys?
This guy chased us. But the thing is, he didn't chase us like normal. I mean, he didn't chase us very far. But it was far enough to scare the crap out of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we were all shook up. And I just thought it might have been just some stupid guy trying to do some kidnapping.
Huh.
But as I learned more about Skinwalkers and other things, I seriously questioned whether he wasn't a supernatural person.
Right.
He didn't smell good. He literally smelled like they say, rotten food. He wore a traditional Indian shawl, but he was wearing white man clothes.
Right.
He didn't move normal. He motioned at us and told us to follow him. He knew the way home.
Oh, that's creepy, though.
Yeah, I mean, literally, he tried to lure us in.
Right.
And everything, the more and more I look at the Skinwalker thing, I seriously question, what if he was a Skinwalker? Wouldn't that be about creepy?
There's certain aspects of them that would lead you to come to that conclusion for sure. You know.
But all I know is we got the heck out of there. We never seen him again. Nobody in any of the villages ever saw the guy. We never saw the horse again.
Right.
And the funny thing, and here's the trippy part, we could not find the horse's tracks.
Oh, that's
We
weird.
saw our horse's hoof prints. We could not see the other horse that was chasing us.
Right.
There was no way to track him down. We thought maybe the ground was too hard packed, but we could find our horse prints.
Right.
As a kid, we just ignored it. But as an adult, I start to remember those things. I'm like, wow, this is really weird.
Maybe it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, you might have had a close encounter.
Oh, that's so creepy. I don't like it. I don't like
The
it.
thing is, his eyes were hollow. Like he saw you,
Right.
but there was no life in them.
Right.
Maybe that's what they mean by a hollow dog.
Hollowed out.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
no emotion.
It's certainly, man, that's certainly something.
Any last words?
Are you trying to shut us up already?
Well, we've been going for over an hour now, so you might as well wrap it up.
I think the folks would like to give their ears a little break.
At this point, I think they could
Might all be
enjoy
locking their
listening
doors
to
and
us.
windows.
Huh?
They might be locking all their doors and windows because they're
Oh.
listening to this.
Right?
They've been thinking about Skinwalkers for too long.
Yeah.
Well,
you
we're
might-
already done, so you guys should probably try and save yourselves. Try to
Yeah.
let it go out of your minds. We're already done for. Our fates are sealed, but you guys, you can still make it out of here.
All right. Well, if you
Yeah.
enjoyed this podcast, then go ahead and hit the like button. If you didn't enjoy it, hit the dislike button. We want to know. Did you like it or didn't you like it? Leave a comment down below on what you think. And let us know, have you had any experiences? If you have a good experience and a really long one, go ahead and email us, because if we enjoy it and we really like it, we might share it on our channel.
Or a short one. Doesn't have to be
Or
a
a
long
short one. No, I mean, like, you can leave all of your comments down below.
Yes,
But if you have a really long one and you don't want to take up too much room in the comment section, go ahead and email it to us. That'd be
Yes.
awesome.
Yes, we'd love to read it.
Yeah. Hit the subscribe button. Yeah.
The Skinwalkers are here. Lindsay, you're a Skinwalker. You can't imitate us proper.
I'm pretty sure I can, though. Because none of us can say subscribe.
That's true.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
She's got us on that one.
Go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you enjoy our channel, if you want to see some more stuff about us. Don't forget to hit the bell notification button to get notified of every upload, because YouTube has a problem with that apparently. I didn't know about it until later. That apparently if you don't hit the bell notification, then you won't get notified of every upload. You'll only get notified for some of them.
Right?
I hated that. That was awful, because then, like, my favorite YouTubers were posting and I didn't get to see their videos right away.
Right. And if you like our stuff and you want to see it, well, you know, if YouTube doesn't want to just let you see this stuff by hitting subscribe, if you want to see it, hit that bell. Then you will be able to see it. So,
That'd be awesome.
yeah.
Well, is this the end?
Yep. That's the end of this one.
Well, till next time, keep it creepy.